Life as We Knew It, Chapter 21, page 325, March 17th. By the time I fell asleep last night, I knew what I was going to have to do today. The only question was, would I have the strength? But when I woke up, I saw Mom struggle to get off her mattress, as though she needed to be up and around to do things for us, and that made up my mind for me. After Matt and John rose, we all pretended like today was just another day, no harder than any we've been through. I made my announcement. "I'm going into town," I said. They stared at me like I was truly crazy. They were probably right. "I'm going to the post office," I said. "I want to see if there's any word from Dad." "What difference does it make?" John asked. "You think he sent us food?" "I want to know if Lisa had her baby," I said. "I need to know that. I need to know that life is continuing. I'm going to town and find out." "Miranda, can we talk?" Matt asked. I nodded, since I knew someone was going to question me about this, and it might as well be him. We left the others in the sunroom and went to the living room to talk privately. "Do you really think you have the strength to make it to town and back?" he asked. I wanted to say, "No, of course I don't, and we both know it, and that's one reason why I'm going." I wanted to say, "Stop me, because if I'm going to die, I want to die at home." I wanted to say, "How could you have let this happen to me?" as though it was Matt's fault, and he could have saved us somehow. None of which I said. "I know it's crazy," I said instead, "but I really need to know if Lisa had the baby. I feel like it's okay for me to die if she did. And maybe the post office is open, and maybe there is a letter. How much longer can I last anyway? A week? 2? I'm willing to lose a few days for peace of mind. You understand that, don't you?" "But if you can, you will come back," he said, after a long pause. "I hope I can," I said. "I'd rather be here, but if I can't, that's okay too." "What about Mom?" he asked. "I've thought about that," I said. "I think this is actually better for her. If I don't come back, she can always have hope that I'm okay. I don't want her to see me die, and I don't know that I can outlive her. This is really best, Matt. I thought about it a lot, and this is the best." Matt looked away. "I'm sorry," he said. "But what about the skis? John's going to need them after we're gone." Well, that was it, wasn't it? I was leaving home to give Johnny just a little better chance. We were starving ourselves to give Johnny just a better little chance. If I really wanted him to have that chance, then I'd better accept that this casual stroll to town was meant to kill me. In which case, I didn't need the skis. "I'll leave them behind," I said. "Tell John they'll be behind the oak tree, and he should get them right after I leave. But don't tell Mom unless she asks. Let her think I'm coming back, okay?" "You don't have to do this," Matt said. "I know," I said, and kissed him goodbye. "And I love you and Johnny and Mom more than I ever knew. Now let me go in and say goodbye while I still have the nerve." So I did. Mom was so weak I don't think she really understood what was going on. She just told me to get back before dark, and I said I would. John looked like he had 1,000 questions, but Matt wouldn't let him start. I kissed him and Mom and told them to leave a light on for me, like that had any meaning. I rammed a pen in one of the blue books into my coat pocket. Then I went to the front door, picked up Dad's shoes, skis, and poles, and walked to the road. When I got to the oak tree, I carefully placed everything where no one from the road could see them. Then I started the walk to town. I wanted desperately to turn around, see the house, say goodbye, but I didn't let myself. I was scared that if I allowed myself that moment of weakness, I would race back in, and what good would that do any of us? Did I really need to be alive on my birthday? Did I even want to be? If Mom died between now and then. So I kept my eyes straight ahead and began the journey. For the first mile, footing wasn't too bad, since John and I had skied there and compacted the snow. Sure, I fell a few times where the snow was ice-like, but I managed. I told myself the rest of the trip wouldn't be too bad, and there was hope I could get to town, maybe even find a letter from Dad and get home again. I liked telling myself that. But the next 2 miles were brutal. I don't think anyone had walked on it since Christmas. I found I couldn't walk after a while, so I sat on the snow and pushed myself forward, half rowing, half sledding. It took all my strength to go a few feet, and the harder I worked, the more I yearned to give up and let myself die then and there. But I pictured the pizza parlor and Dad telling me they weren't in heaven. If there was a letter, I wanted to know. Death could wait a few more hours. I felt a lot better when I got to a spot where I could walk upright again. I was soaking wet by that point and freezing cold, but being on my own 2 feet gave me a sense of dignity and purpose. It made me feel human again, and that gave me some strength back. One of the scariest things was seeing how very few houses had smoke coming out of their chimneys. It wasn't like I could go to any of them and say, "Rescue me, feed my family," because all they'd do was throw me out. We would have done the same if anyone came to our door. But to see so many houses with no signs of life, some people I knew had simply left while that was still possible, but others must have died from the flu or the cold or the hunger. We were all still alive, Mom and Matt and Johnny and me, and I'd left a record. People would know I had lived. That counted for a lot. The closer I got to town, the easier it was to walk, but the closer I got to town, the fewer signs of life I saw. It made sense. The people there lived closer together, so they shoveled their snow, at least in the beginning. But they were also less likely to have wood stoves and more likely to have frozen to death. The closer they lived, the faster the flu would have spread. Our isolation had saved us, given us weeks, maybe even months more life. By the time I got near enough to see the post office, I was starting to feel like I could make it back home. I knew that was madness, that the road was uphill and I had no strength left for that part where I wouldn't be able to walk. It's one thing to push yourself downhill, but pushing yourself uphill would be impossible. My heart would give out and I'd die a couple miles from home. But I didn't care. I'd made it to town and that was all I'd planned for. I'd go to the post office and find word from Dad that he and Lisa and baby Rachel were alive and well. Then it wouldn't matter where I died or how. Johnny would live and so would Rachel, and that was what counted. It was eerie standing on the main street of town, seeing no one, hearing no one, smelling nothing but the stench of death. I saw the carcasses of dogs and cats, pets people had left behind that couldn't survive in the cold without food. I bent down and clawed at one to see if there was any meat left, but what little clung to the skeleton was too frozen to pry off. I threw it back down into the snow-covered street and felt relieved I didn't see any human bodies. Then I got to the post office and saw it was dead too. I felt such despair. It was probable the post office had never reopened since that last day Matt had worked there. Any fantasy I'd had that the reason I'd left the sunroom was to find a letter from Dad floated out of me. I'd gone to town to die. There was no point going home, forcing the others to watch that happen. I sank onto the ground. What was the point? Why should I even try to get back to the house? The kindest thing I could do would be to stay where I was and let the coldness kill me. Mrs. Nesbit had known how to die. Couldn't I learn that from her? But then I saw a glimpse of yellow. My world has been nothing but shades of gray for so long that the yellow almost hurt my eyes. But something was yellow. I remembered yellow was the color of sun. I'd seen the sun last July. It hurt to look straight at it, and it hurt to look at this new burst of yellow. It wasn't the sun. I laughed at myself for thinking it might be. It was a sheet of paper dancing in the crosswind down the street. But it was yellow. I had to have it. I forced myself to stand up and chase the sheet of paper. It taunted me with its dance, but I outwitted it, and with all my remaining strength put my foot over it and pinned it to the sidewalk. I bent down and felt the world swirling around me as I picked it up and stood straight. Just holding it made me excited. There were words. This was a message. Somehow, someone sometime had said something, and now I would know what it was. City Hall open Fridays, 2 to 4 p.m. There was no date, no way of knowing when it had been posted or why, but the words told me where to go. I had nothing to lose. Any dreams I might have had died with the post office. If City Hall were closed also, it made no difference. So I began the walk to City Hall. It was only a couple of blocks away from the post office. I looked at my watch and saw I had half an hour before it would close, assuming it was even open. But when I got there, the door was unlocked and I could hear voices. "Hello?" I said, proud of myself that I remembered the word. "Come on in," a man said. He opened an office door and waved me in. "Hi," I said, like this was the most normal thing in the world.